Now, as you know, we like to have our weekly chat with Dr. Roger Gewolb. He's CEO of Fair Money, personal finance and credit expert, and he's usually frothing about something. I dare say he's overboiled this week. Roger, very good morning to you.
Good morning, James. Yes, almost all the news this morning centers around Chancellor Sunak's rather prime ministerial statement yesterday afternoon. COVID, Ukraine, and everything else seems to be taking a bit of a back seat today.
You say that it was prime ministerial statement. If he were to be prime minister, I'd expect a bit more leadership. I thought it was rather empty, rather hollow, and rather lacking in substance.
I agree with you. I think it was pretty lukewarm, and I think there were some things that he could have done. He promised future actions that he plans to take, but he actually announced fewer and lesser measures than were hoped for to ease the current financial crisis for Britain. As many as 95% of UK adults are now desperately concerned about the rising cost of living, according to a report released Monday. British living standards are headed for the lowest ever since records began in '56. Inflation is 6.2% in February for the last 12 months. Food, energy, and petrol bills seem to be the major concern. As a consequence, 48% of workers, James, say they're now going to try to stop saving any money or reduce savings. Even more troubling for our personal finance world, a fifth of people say they now have no alternative other than to borrow their way out of trouble. Mr. Sunak also pointed out that we are, quote, at war, unquote, referring to Ukraine. And he also implied blame to the pre-Brexit legacy for his being unable to do more to help the disastrous situation that confronts us all today. But without a penny of windfall tax levied on the humongous profits of the oil and gas companies, many people are trying to relate this to the conflict in Ukraine, where we're not actually at war ourselves.
And I think what you raise is some very important points, which are relating to not only where is money coming from, but also about this vision and this freedom, this post-Brexit discussion, of which there should be plenty of opportunity. And he, as Chancellor, along with the Prime Minister, should be architect of our post-Brexit future. And there seems to be little discussion. And actually, given what's happened because of the pandemic and because of what's happening in Ukraine, it would be a perfect opportunity for him to get every single deck chair out and move them around pretty much any deck he wanted to, but he chose not to. And I don't know, the sun's out, but the deck chairs weren't. I was just trying to think. You said lukewarm to describe. There's nothing. I can't think of anything that's lukewarm that is remotely palatable. I mean, if something, say for example, you cook too many sausages. A lukewarm sausage is not what you want to eat. If it's out the fridge and it's been sort of sat there, and there are things that you can do with a cold sausage, but something that's lukewarm, there's nothing that's lukewarm that's remotely palatable, is there?
No, lukewarm is not terribly useful. And more than that, there were some it's really hard to figure out why he didn't take some easy wins that he could have had.
Yes,
and some of the losses were the fact that he didn't suspend next month's rise in national insurance, which so many people were hoping that would be the case.
Partly because you see, because that's a tax on both employers and employees. I think it's going to put a real pressure on jobs. Number one. The second point is that it's going to be used by employers not to give pay rises to their staff. And the third point is that it's a stealth tax. It's not a pleasant tax.
No, it's not. And it's going to hurt the people that he wants to actually help the most, which is what's really puzzling, because there's so many other alternatives that he could do. He said this will save the average worker some £330 per year. Hey, how are you going to spend yours, James? Wow, you know.
Well, partly for how you're going to spend yours, but the second point is that you're not saving any money if you're not paying it already. If it's a tax rise that was going to come in and then it's not coming in, it's not saving you anything. You're just leaving me the same. It's just like, oh, I made some blusterous announcements. I'm not going to quite implement it as I was going to before. Some of you will still have to pay. Some of you won't. The ones that you won't, it's net zero. I don't know. I'm furious. But anyway, just one final word very quickly on fuel costs. Again, he said 5p. We got 5p. It's not really being passed on at pumps. 5p, complete waste of time. I mean, they won't even buy you a gobstopper.
Well, it's extraordinary. I mean, the RAC says that that's worth about £3 per tank fill. So between filling your tank once a week and once a month, that's between 36 and 150 pounds a year. Wow. And I would suggest that we consider the fact that fuel tax is actually a percentage of the fuel price, which has been skyrocketing. So if you calculate it, actually the government is still making more money from fuel tax now, even after this adjustment, than it was before the pandemic, the Ukraine, and all the other events that caused fuel supply problems.
Exactly, which is why they should have done more. There we go. We must leave it there. Dr. Roger Gewolb, CEO of Fair Money and personal finance and credit expert. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. Thoroughly enjoy your interaction with us there.